Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Uncanny Spirits Club. And we're revisiting a distiller that I've tried before. But the last time I tried it, it was on the Uncanny Spirits Club Cheap Shot Challenge. So it was under $20. And it was episode 15. So it was from a year ago. And that was Rebel Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Now, I remember enjoying that as far as I haven't gone back to rewatch the video to get a more accurate description. But I was in the grocery recently and I saw that there was not just the cheaper Rebel that I tried before, but there were two other bottles. One of them was like a single barrel reserve or something to that effect, and it was a bit out of my price range at the time. I think it was in the neighborhood of 60 or 80, something like that. It was quite a bit more than what I usually would want to spend these days, unless it's something really super interesting. Got a smudge on my screen there. Um, but the other one was 44.99, which is still, getting outside of. I try to stick within the $30 range because there's a lot of things you can get in that price range that are very good. Um, but I splurged a little bit. Now this, if I remember, the original Rebel was 80 proof. I don't believe it was too much higher than that. This is Rebel 100. And not only is it 100 proof, but it's also been aged for 6 years, which is a pretty good range for a bourbon. You don't usually get bourbons that are older than 3 years, sometimes 5 years. 3 to 5 is the typical range. 6 years and up is getting into some interesting territory. Um, and this is a wheated bourbon. It says defiantly smooth wheated bourbon. And I'm looking forward to it because a higher proof can make a big difference in flavor and drinkability. And the price is definitely different because if the other one was in the cheap shot challenge, it had to have been under $20. Even if it was just by a penny, like 19.99. So we're gonna open this up and we're gonna see what difference the extra proof makes. It's got a cork. Looks like an organic cork. Smells kind of nice from the cork. Not too heavy of a smell coming from the bottle right off the bat. Oh, there's some woodiness. There's some woodiness. That's a little bit like some Jack Daniels kind of smelling. So let's see how that does. It's not very fumy though for being 100 proof. So let's give a good solid pour into our glass here. Pop the cork back in there. Standard bourbon color, nice darker brown. It's darker in the bottle than it is in the glass, of course, as per usual, because it's more concentrated in there. A little bit of fuminess there, but definitely some barrel. You can definitely smell the barrel. It smells like new barrel, which is interesting if it's been aged for 6 years. It smells like new wood. Like you go to the hardware store and they've got the 2x4s and everything, and it's not, you don't get like, if you're not looking for anything specific like pine or whatever that, you're just looking for whatever a standard 2x4 is. I don't know what they, whether it's oak or maple or whatever they make the standard stuff out of. Um, Birch. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not a tree 2x4 guy, clearly. But it smells like a big stack of fresh wood that hasn't been sitting outside, that hasn't gotten like the seasoning yet, as they would call it. And there's a hint of some bourbon smell underneath there, so we're gonna see what this does for us. Mm. It's sharp and then mellow, and then sharp again, and then very warm. And a big lump of warmth just falls right down into the chest, down the esophagus. It has a definite similarity to Jim Beam and things of that nature. Very, very Jim Beamy. This is done by Bardstown. Well, it's done by Lux Row Distillers in Bardstown. It's distilled and aged in Kentucky. So it's not necessarily connected with Jim Beam at all, but it has a definite, it reminds me a lot of Jim Beam, but a bit deeper and a little mellower. Like I said, it starts a little sharp and then mellows and then sharp and then heat. But the sharpness isn't bad. It fades quick. My tongue is not nearly as numb as I would start feeling from a Jim Beam or a Jack Daniels or something of that nature. It's settling really nicely. It's not overwhelming things, and it is very mellow. I'm tempted to say it's smooth, but then everybody says smooth, whether it's smooth or not, because that's just a whiskey word, apparently. Mellow is what I'm going to call it. You can taste some of the woodiness, but not as much as I thought I was going to. It definitely tastes like it was very young wood, though. Like it's definitely a new barrel. It hasn't been charred very much. It hasn't been toasted all that much. You know, it was put in, it was aged, and then that was it. Let's take a second one now that the palate is adjusted and see what we got. Okay. It keeps that mellow feeling. It's probably the most calm wheated bourbon that I've had. I mean, wheated bourbons aren't necessarily ridiculously sharp, but they do have a bit of bite to them. This is nice and mild. And it's got that Jim Beam flavor, like I said, but it doesn't attack your mouth like Jim Beam does. And I like Jim Beam. I've tried like a few different versions of theirs. It's not bad. That heat at the end kind of gets you. Like this is one of those, I say this every so often with some of the higher proof stuff, that occasionally that they could give me heartburn, which has happened in the past. Some of the balcons that I've had in the past were like 150 proof, and they gave me heartburn, but they were good. They were delicious, but they gave me heartburn. But this could potentially do that if you had too much too quick. But this is a nice sipper. Like I'm feeling the warmth of it starting to really spread up through the esophagus and through the chest, giving a nice, warm, cozy fireplace kind of feel. It's pretty nice, actually. I mean, the flavor isn't anything new or different. The flavor doesn't wow me, but it also does not, it doesn't detract from anything. Like sometimes you have some of these warmer, higher proof things, and they've sacrificed flavor for the feeling that you get, right? So that you feel like it's moving through you a bit more. It feels a bit more affecting you more powerfully, but it doesn't have as much in the way of flavor. This one, while it doesn't have anything new to offer flavor wise, it doesn't take away too much from the flavor in a way where you're only really drinking it for the strength. It is very mellow. It's not sharp at all. And I like that. Now, it kind of puts me in a tough spot Is it worth $45? I don't think so. But am I going to shortchange it? I can't really, because it does give me a good feeling. It's not like nostalgic, or it doesn't remind me of other things other than, again, it's got that a very similar flavor profile to Jim Beam. But I think if you knocked off $5 off of that, just five, and put it under $40, if you put it at like $39.99, old marketing trick, it looks like you're saving some money if it's a penny under the next whole number, right? $39.99, I think, would be the sweet spot for this. And you might be thinking, well, what difference is $5 going to make? If you have a collection, if you're building a large home bar and you're trying to get the most for your money, $5 can make a big difference, because $5 can go towards something else. The price might have gone up, or $5 can go towards what you might need to make mixed drinks, like sugar cubes, or simple syrup, or bitters, or something. I mean, that $5 can go in different ways depending on what you're doing. If you're just going to the store and you're buying booze and you have a bunch of disposable income, you might not care. $5 is $5. But I hate to penny pinch a little bit, but I kind of have to minimum, maximum, min max, as they say in the role playing pencil and paper community. When you min max your stats, I've got to kind of make sure that everything just lines right up, and price is kind of important. So I think $5 cheaper would be the sweet spot for this, and I think it would be in the perfect spot. Now, am I too broken up by the fact that it's not $5 cheaper? No. Would I buy it again at this price? Probably. I would rather not. I would rather save that $5. But I'm not going to be mad about it, right? If you compare this to my favorite rye whiskey, which is by Angel's Envy, and it's the Angel's Envy finished rye. It's finished in Caribbean rum casks. My goodness, it is absolutely delicious. I've got a little bit left of a bottle right now that I've been sipping on in the kitchen. Oh, I've been in heaven with that. That was when I first discovered it. It was in the $60 range. And I bought more than one bottle, not all at once, but I bought a bottle and I went through it and discovered how delicious it was. Bought another bottle. And then the price went up. It went up to $84.99, which was bad enough. Then it went up to $94.99. And it's good. It is really good. Like, top shelf all day. But I can't spend that kind of money on it. Not on any sort of regularity. So it became my favorite rye that was usually out of reach most days. Recently, it came down in price. It came down to $75. Now, this bottle in there was given to me as a gift, so I didn't pay for it, but I was told it was $79. So the price even there still fluctuates, and that $5, that hurts. It's not $95. It's not $85, but man, being $80 versus $75, $5 hurts. And like, when you're up in those prices, you think, well, you're already paying $70+ for it. What difference does $5 make? It can mean quite a bit, like I said. But regardless, I think this is worth getting. Even at the $45, I'll grit my teeth and I would probably still enjoy it at that, because I'm enjoying it now. If it went down to $40, $39.99, I think I'd be absolutely no complaints whatsoever. It's good stuff. It's nice and mellow. It doesn't break any barriers, but I don't think it needs to. And I've said this a few times on the channel for different things. Some things really kind of wow me, and they're really like, oh my gosh, this is something totally different. I never expected it to taste like this. And other things I like just because they're comforting. They do what they need to do. They give me that nice, warm and fuzzy feeling. They don't make me kind of like, meh, when I have a couple sips out of it. And they don't have to be breaking the mold. They can just be a good whiskey or a good vodka or a good rum or a good whatever. And this is a good bourbon. It's a good bourbon. I like it. So there you go. That's the Rebel 100, aged 6 years. Now, what I'm going to have to do in the near future, just like I'm going to have to compare the Rich and Rare Reserve versus the benchmark for the Cheap Shot Challenge, I'm going to have to get a bottle of the Cheap Shot version of this, the lower proof, and compare it taste-wise to this to see just how much of a difference that proof is making, plus the 6 years. And I think it'll be dramatic. I think this will win out just because it's price-wise, I'd rather spend less than 20 for something good, but you sometimes have to pay for decent quality. And this is decent. I like it. So the Rebel 100, aged 6 years. Of course, it's 100 proof. It's Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It's a wheated wheated bourbon, maybe. You might be burdened by it, but it's a wheated bourbon. So a high wheat mash as far as that goes. $44.99 here in my local grocery stores in Ohio. Of course, your prices may vary depending on local taxes and whatever you've got going on. So that's it. I'm going to enjoy this and probably another one. And until next time, of course, as always, cheers.